So today I'm going to give you a very quick summary of how we got here in terms of optical transceivers at 400 gig, 800 gig. Many of you have probably experienced the 1 gig, 10 gig devices, used them a lot. You're now trying to migrate to 100 gig. Okay, 400 gig is going to be a big adjustment. So I just wanted to outline a little bit on the naming conventions. You know, how do people refer to these things? Talk about the connector types. So this is more about a physical description of what's going on here. I'm not going to dig down too deep into the architecture of these devices. We'll talk briefly about modulation schemes that are used, and finally just summarize what are the most commonly available 800 gig stuff out there today. So here's what the 10 gig transceivers look like. Very, very simple design. You got your TOSA, your transmitter, your ROSA, your receiver, an IC, some kind of RF circuitry, using on-off keying for modulation. Very, very simple, very straightforward, cost-effective, and looks absolutely nothing like our coherent transceivers. I didn't have time to put together a block diagram for that, but suffice it to say that they are much, much more complicated. You have your optical hybrid for the receiver, DSP. There's a lot more going on in there. So let's talk a little bit about naming conventions. So the IEEE scheme here, 10G base LR, I think everybody's familiar with that. Really straightforward. You had LR, you had SR, single mode or multi-mode, data rate 10 gig. It's very straightforward, easy. So I hope you get over the fact that it's not going to be easy anymore. This is just for 100 gig. You know, you've got LR, LR4. I got a whole list I'll go over here in a second, but it gets much more complicated to understand. Well, if I buy this device, what do I need to get, you know, two of the exact same thing? Can I mix them, match them? How does that work? And I'm going to go over that just briefly, but you're going to see that. And you know, the reason why this deck is here is because we get questions. Customers are thoroughly confused as to what this means. What's an MPO? What's going on here? How do I buy the right optics? And oftentimes they don't find out until they try to plug something in. So that's why we put this together and are talking about this today. And we have more of this, more details on this on our website. And if you want to ping me, feel free to do so. Just a brief slide talking about data rates versus line rate. You know, why do these numbers exist? I bought a QSP 28. What's 28? I'm running this thing 4x25, right? It's 100 gig. So just, you can do the math on the forward error correction and some of the overhead involved in transmitting those signals. Okay, so transceiver reach. This has really exploded over time here. Short reach and long reach used to be the only thing you had to worry about. It was pretty straightforward, right? You had multi-mode fiber, that was short reach, probably went you know, hundreds of meters, and long reach typically it was 10 kilometers. You're all done. It was real simple. Now you've got all kinds of stuff. The DACs, AOCs, AECs, those are pretty popular for really short distance stuff, but they're not all that inexpensive anymore when you start talking about 400 gig AECs or AOCs. So be careful about your choice there. You're not necessarily going to save money. There's a lot more active components in those cables. Very short reach. DR, that was a tricky one. I don't know how they came up with that. Double what? I'm not sure. I didn't make this up. But FR, LR, you know, why so many choices, right? So it comes down to certain manufacturers trying to save some money, certain customers trying to save some money. Then you have requirements in terms of reach and whatnot. But it's important to know that some of these things are interoperable. You know, you can plug an FR and a DR together on each end. You'll get more than 500 meters, but you'll probably not quite get 2 kilometers. And so these are the kinds of things that we get asked all the time. You know, you might have your favorite vendor, favorite transceiver type, and you just want to know, oh, if I get this, you know, can I connect that with this other type on the other end? Okay, now I'm going to talk briefly about what does the physical interface look like. So you've got your cables, you want to plug stuff in, right? The more common connector that you're probably used to seeing is the LC, SC and LC. And now to get more density, as you get to 400 gig and 800 gig, you're using multiple ports on the transceiver. This is an example of a two fiber pair solutions, dual CS, dual LC, and dual mini LC. So, you know, if you have LC in your facility, that's what your infrastructure looks like. You probably want to do something like the dual LC, the belly-to-belly device. But then we get into the MPO stuff, MPO, MTP. It really starts getting complicated. Keep in mind, other than this MPO 16 here, there's 16 fibers in there. And notice that little block on the top, that's the key, all right? So you can't plug it into a MPO 12. Well, that's not the case in many MPO connectors. They'll simply plug in and you'll be puzzled. Why isn't my link working? Why isn't the light coming on? So the MPO 12 is really the common interface for 100 gig, 400 gig stuff for 4 lanes. The middle 4 are not actually fibers in there, but that's what the layout looks like on the front of it. Now, when you get into 800 gig, you're going to see the most popular things are going to be that dual MPO, because you've already got that. You've already got MPO 12s for your 400 gig stuff. So you just need 2 of them, and they go belly to belly, like shown here. There's also another type, MPO 12, 2-row, which is super confusing because we use a lot of MPO 24s. Looks exactly the same. How do you know? So, sorry, I didn't make this up, but you're going to be stuck with it. And then we get a lot of questions about this too. So 100 gig is predominantly what people are using out there. It's the new 10 gig, right? And so for aggregation purposes or for other reasons, you want to stick that into a 400 gig. Pretty straightforward, right? No, it's not. You can throw away your LR 400 gig. You need to use single wavelengths, LR1s, or DR1s, FR1s, whatever. The ones oftentimes not shown on there. And this way you can take advantage of the aggregation capabilities. So you may not have that 400 gig router port in your near future. 100 gig is going to live for quite a while, but when you go to transport that, 400 gig is the most cost-effective way to move that across the fiber in any kind of distance. So this is going to be the most common solution you're going to see when you're trying to move data, either more of it on one fiber or just further distances. And so, yeah, don't do this. So you can't plug in your tried and true 100 gig low-cost LR4 4 wavelength device into 400 gig port. You know, don't be too concerned about the single wavelength stuff. The costs for those are extremely competitive. Okay, pretty busy slide. I don't expect to go through all this with you here, especially when I've got 1 minute left, but this is a good reference so you can see what's going on, what kind of modulation is being used for all these different standards, and what kind of device, what kind of form factor is that coming in. What do they do on the electro side, optical side? So it's really here just so you can get a quick review. Notice that most everything in the electrical domain is PAM4. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about what's really available today at 800 gigs. So you may not be there yet, but if you were looking, shopping, and you managed to get some ports to plug some devices in, notice this is the OSFP form factor. There are more things available in this form factor because it's hard to get the heat out. So the QSFP-DD package, while there are still a handful out there that are commonly used right now, it's difficult to cool those devices. So the first generation is definitely going to be the OSFP, with the QSFP coming along next. And that's it. Any questions? I got 8 seconds.